Shit, Jay, shit. Get in the cabin. Get in the cabin now, Jay, get... Shit, Jay, look, we're tipping, quick, get in the cabin. Oh god, fucking god. Oh shit, get in the cabin, get in the cabin.
My dad was an amazing man. He was always very cool and collected. He wouldn't get stressed out about difficult situations. He'd always give the best advice, even if it was 2 or 3 words. I really miss him.
That summer, Jude's father, Greg's stepfather, Pete, died after a lifelong battle with skin cancer.
In the last 18 months of his life, where he really was very, very dependent on me and others to look after him day to day, that was almost unbearable.
It left the family fragmented and reeling from grief.
His operations towards the end were so severe, and you could see he was in so much pain, but he just did, sorry. But he was just so strong.
Greg was working in London as an A&E doctor, living the rat race existence. A life of long hours and short meals, of clicks and likes and shares and loneliness.
Even having a job I knew I was supposed to be grateful for, I still felt what many of us feel, that this is not how we are designed to live, that there is something bigger out there which we're all seeking to discover. Pete's death was a massive wake-up call. We are on this planet once only and for a short time, and surely our purpose has to be something more than propping up a system designed to exhaust us and the planet we live on.
With ongoing depression threatening to overwhelm his family, Greg had his light bulb moment. He had his first encounter with the healing power of tackling nature's greatest challenges when he climbed the Matterhorn at 15.
I thought, here's a way for our family to recover. My brother and I will row the Atlantic Ocean whilst raising awareness of the illness that took Pete's life.
And so this brave and crazy odyssey began. Greg and Jude gave themselves the goal of raising £100,000 for the British Skin Foundation, and they committed fully to rowing the Atlantic Ocean, unaccompanied, 3,000 miles, around the clock, 24/7, only sleeping for 2 hours at a time.
Living with a father who is dying from the day you are born, it destroys you. It is an ongoing trauma, and it doesn't go away when they die. The weight of concern, worry and fear every single day as a kid, as you try to figure out how the world works, never leaves your shoulders. It is almost impossible not to feel hopeless, depressed, directionless. Greg gave me a lifeline.
It feels like returning to nature is how we reconnect to what is real and valuable in the world, to what is truly important.
It's like we've forgotten how to exist normally as humans. We've forgotten about our ancestors, our history, our love for exploration. Humans have become stagnated in modern life. Careers, social status, money. What does it all mean when you remember where we came from? In the forest, surviving and living in the moment. This artificial environment seems to have destroyed their essence of who we are. Does anyone now truly know the core of who they are as a stripped-back human? The only way is to go back to our roots, to embrace the vastness of nature.
I think it's an incredible challenge that Greg and Jude have set themselves, and they deserve a huge amount of respect given they're doing this in honour of their father, taking on such an immense challenge as rowing across the Atlantic. The training that requires, the perseverance, commitment, days, months on their own together out in the middle of nowhere. I'm in awe of them for taking that on. I've tried to sail across the Atlantic from New York to London and made it as far as Bermuda after trashing a 100-foot sailing boat. So rowing across the Atlantic, I can't even begin to think about how tough that is and the endurance required. You know, two men out in the boat on their own, you know, all sorts of weather that they're going to come up against, wind, waves, different temperatures. It's fraught with danger, and it's one of those challenges that you take on, and if you can achieve it, it's something that means a huge amount and will stay with you forever. I think for someone of Jude's age at 18, again, it's an immense challenge to take on mentally.
In a storm, there's going to be around 30-foot waves going past us, with huge swells passing every few seconds.
As a mother, I'm absolutely terrified of them being out in the ocean.
Together, the boys channeled their grief into training and fundraising, which pretty much began to consume their lives.
18-hour days on the computer, do TV interviews, radio interviews, writing press releases. I work probably 1 week a month as a locum A&E doctor, but the other 3 weeks I would say are as hard, if not harder, than my 1 week spent in hospital.
The first thing they needed was enough money for food supplies, safety equipment, and the main thing, a specialised boat with state-of-the-art technology, including onboard navigation and a mechanised water maker. They were so confident and excited, it simply didn't occur to them that the unpredictable forces of nature could cause this technology to fail them with terrifying consequences. And then, one day in January, they were in Gran Canaria, with a boat, with supplies, with almost everything in place, and just a week to get their act together before facing 3,000 miles of empty ocean.
So here's everything we've got. First thing is the sextant. This is a device which allows us to navigate using the sun and the stars. These are our snack packs, so we've got dairy-free chocolate raisins, dairy-free shortbread millionaire. Is a solar still, so in the event that we couldn't drink, this converts salt water into drinking water. All of our communication will be through this sat phone. So we've got to spare one of these if it breaks, and if not, we'll be completely alone, potentially for months. These are our survival suits, so if you can imagine, we might have a cabin fire and we might have to abandon the boat and live in a life raft for weeks. And these protect us from the elements of the ocean. They're dry suits, absolutely essential in a life-saving situation.
The reality of what Greg and Jude were really doing began to sink in. They were going to leave the material, everyday world behind to become one with nature.
Where better place to be than deeply, deeply immersed in nature in today's dysfunctional, destructive, unpleasant modern society? Pointlessly hitting targets for someone else's profit, whilst also destroying the planet's natural resources, polluting the oceans, inflicting pain on one another.
Within the days leading up to departing Gran Canaria, we were consumed up to our neck in preparing the boat and continuing to keep our sponsors happy. Since the first day of the campaign, I ensured to give myself all the time I needed to mentally prepare. Using both yoga and meditation, I attempted to keep myself grounded whilst drowning in apprehension and emotion days before potentially seeing the last of land, forever. I had no idea at the start of the road that I would become the youngest person to row any ocean in a pair and a Guinness World Record breaker. I'm glad I didn't. This added pressure may have pushed me over the edge. Growing up with someone dying in your family constantly drains every strand of emotion in your body. From the age of 14 to 16, I was severely depressed and riddled with anxiety. I really couldn't see myself getting past the next few years. I used meditation to aid my mental health crisis then, and that's the only reason why I used this technique of emotional survival, building up to the days of leaving Gran Canaria. I really had no other way of coping with the stress, and I'm grateful that I knew how to meditate at that time, because I think it kept me sane.
There's a quote by Eckhart Tolle where he says, "We have forgotten our true nature and forgotten what rocks, plants and birds still know. We have forgotten simply how to be ourselves, to be where life is, here and now."
The journey ahead would test the brothers to the absolute limit, but for now, they'd come together as brothers and were filled with optimism and excitement. And then the day Greg and Jude had been waiting for almost an entire 12 months. With over £50,000 already raised, with the sun shining, and with nothing but 3,000 miles of empty ocean ahead of them, they set off in a spirit of elation, confidence, and pure optimism. The boys felt equipped for all eventualities and ready to immerse themselves in the natural world. Little were they to realise just how quickly the natural world would put them in their place, and how harshly their confidence would be shattered.
Behind us you can see the last of land, and it's the calm before the storm. Bye bye, see you in Barbados.
When on their first day they were greeted by a whale and a pod of dolphins, they took it as a happy omen.
Oh my god! They're all the flying around us! Woohoo! Oh my god! Look, they've gone underneath us! We've been welcomed by nature!
They were, however, very quickly and very cruelly to be proved wrong.
I've just done my first 2-hour shift and I'm just in complete shock at the moment. I can't quite really understand what's going on right now. All that's going around my head is, oh my god, we're actually doing this. And it was absolutely incredible that the first shift we saw a massive whale go past us and a pod of dolphins surrounding us, and this has made me realise that I'm so excited.
But all their optimism and energy was washed away within the first few days to be replaced by fear and loneliness, after they were confronted by fierce winds and 25-foot waves.
I've just been laying down in the cabin for the last hour and a half, and it's really started to sink in. Kind of feels like a bit of a bad dream, to be honest. 2 months on this little thing.
I'm just extremely tired. Can't really eat. I've got seasickness. I'm just really missing home. I've got all of these photos up here just to remind me of everything that I'm missing out on. I thought it was going to motivate me, but it's not really helping, to be honest.
Their lives had been reduced to a tiny rowing boat and a cabin barely bigger than a cupboard. Tossed around on ferocious 40-foot waves, sleep, even for those tiny 2-hour shifts, was almost impossible. With months of nothing but an unforgiving ocean ahead of them, they were literally at breaking point in just the first 2 days. Jude even confessed one night that he had seriously thought of sabotaging the whole row. Already terrified, their fears of what might lie ahead began to grow, and those fears, it turned out, were well founded. But the remarkable thing about humanity is our ability to adapt and evolve. Alone, frightened and battered by unpredictable elements, after 2 solid days of storms, somehow the boys recovered their spirits. Their optimism, however, was to be short-lived as they were immediately confronted by a host of new problems.
Our water maker hasn't been working lately. We think it's something to do with all the big waves and the air getting into the tubes, but at the moment we can't make water, which is a great start to an ocean row. I cannot tell you how much I just want to leave this boat and go home.
This was a dramatic blow. Without the water maker, the only way to make drinking water would be to pump water manually during their valuable rest periods.
Well, at least we know it works.
Now there's another massive bubble here though in this bit of tubing. So when I take the input line out of this bucket and back into the hole that goes through the bottom of the boat, we don't know what's going to happen.
Fingers crossed.
Because otherwise, if we don't have water, we can't drink. We're screwed. Today is day 5, 22nd of January. The first 3 days have been really strong winds, big waves. The problem with the big waves is that the air gets stuck in the water maker, and our water maker is no longer working, and we've been on and off the phone with the manufacturer and we can't get it fixed, which means we're hand pumping, and that means pulling a lever up and down for hours a day when you're meant to be resting. Comes out a drop at a time, and I've just been crying and crying and crying. I just miss everyone so much back home. Miss my girlfriend so much. So looking forward to seeing her when we get there. And not the rowing, it's just being defeated and defeated and defeated by this water maker. It's just ground me down and broken me and snapped me in half. There's no decisions that have to be made about comfort here. The only decisions that have to be made are about survival. When you're pumping a handle up and down to make the water to allow you to drink so that you can survive, it doesn't really compare to anything that's going to make you comfortable. Spent a lot of time chatting away with the stars, becoming friends with the moon, not being afraid of the monstrous waves in the dark. Well, afraid, but less afraid. I'm really grateful to the unfolding love that is felt for everyone who is alive. Just it's incredible that we get to experience life as a human being on this planet. And I'm so grateful to planet Earth. Nature. For just being. It's really wonderful to be so deeply immersed in nature. It's a really special experience to just be alone in the ocean, to feel its presence with you. Today is day 7. The past few days have had some real ups and some real downs. We've been particularly struggling with producing water at first a few days ago because our electric one has failed, and despite numerous phone calls trying to rewire it and replumb it, we didn't get anywhere. So we've been hand pumping water, which basically involves pulling this lever up and down, getting a few drops out at a time to get all of our drinking water. And then on top of that, today we lost all of our instruments. We didn't know, had no auto helm, so the boat couldn't steer itself. We had no speed, no direction. Our compass went, we were using a hand bearing compass. It just makes you realise how reliant you are on this stuff, and as soon as you're without it, you suddenly feel very, very vulnerable. But generally, spirits, despite this, we keep getting knocked down with these kind of problems, so I think we're just getting a little better at handling them, and I'm loving being out here with my brother. Letting go of all the norms of day-to-day life. No regular coffee when you wake up, no comfy bed, no easy toilet to use, no running water. There's a real sense of letting go of these things completely, and it's really interesting to see how much I, like so many people, identify within these comforts, and when they're taken away there's a sort of a loss of self almost. But what is emerging so beautifully is this steady flow of the waves that come past, which is just slowly immersing into my psyche. And I think just like a monkey who sees a fake tree in a zoo for what it is, a fake tree, and this deeper essence that a monkey would want to have a real tree as opposed to a fake tree to climb on. Similarly, we've evolved over thousands and thousands of years to live deeply immersed within nature on this planet, and relying so much on modern civilization is not what our deeper essence really knows. And I really feel that one of the wonders of being out here is the reintegration to something very primal, and just establishing a closer affinity with that. I feel incredibly lucky. Just put a shitload of alcohol gel on that, and then there's the other one. As you can see, body taking a bit of a smashing, but the best two things today, which has boosted our morale. 9 o'clock this morning, we were blessed with 50 playful, fun, elegant dolphins just skipping over the waves, come right past us, and shortly afterwards we had our first cup of tea.
So we've spent all morning trying to get the beloved water maker to get working, and look at this flow. There's water! There's fucking water! Oh, and it tastes so fresh. I don't want to hold my breath because it seems to fail every time we get happy, but it's making water, and the water maker is fucking working!
We've had a few days of really big weather again, sort of 28 knot winds, 25 foot waves, and quite a few of them have literally come behind the boat. The boat has gone nearly vertical, you're facing backwards going down the wave, and then it crashes over the boat and onto your face, filling your whole body and the front area with just completely flooded with water, knocking you off your seat. And today's been a really good day. I spent about 2 or 3 hours trying to get the water maker working, the electric one, and I've got it working. Bliss. It means we can make water simply through the push of a button, rather than pulling this lever up and down, up and down, up and down all day, which frees us to do other things, like tend to little things that need mending, like for example on the wheels of the rowing seat, cleaning the hull of the boat, rather than the essential thing that we had to do before, which was making water. Yeah, and day 12, we're about 700 nautical miles in, about 1800 nautical miles to go roughly, so about a quarter to a third of the way, 12 days, which is great. I mean, we've had really strong winds, so we're going to have covered a lot of ground much quicker than we will for the remainder of the trip, where the winds die down a bit.
Now we've got some stronger winds again, and we're a bit more used to it now, but nonetheless we're always a bit on edge, worrying if we're going to capsize. Just want to show you what our view is every day for 40 days. We see nothing but ocean. It's beautiful.
Despite this temporary reprieve and their determination to remain optimistic, the boys were struck another even more crushing blow to their confidence with a terrifying and potentially deadly reversal of fortune.
Once again, all of our instruments have failed. This device up here is our GPS, and it's flashing red, meaning we're not getting any GPS fix. And so if you look at our instruments, we've got no speed, we can't use our auto helm, we essentially have no idea where we are in the ocean. And basically Jude is just steering using the 2 bits of line, and I'm about to hand him this hand-bearing compass, which will follow our the known bearing we need to follow.
But Greg and Jude's best efforts to fix the auto helm, the GPS and the water maker came to nothing. Now they would have to steer with one hand and row with the other, and their valuable rest time would have to be given over to pumping drinking water. For the first time, they were forced to consider turning back.
The GPS is fucked. The water maker doesn't work. We're having to hand pump all day. We're unable to use a rudder, the auto helm, so one of us has to literally row with one oar and steer with the other, and it's agony. Like, it doesn't look like much, but when you're pulling on different angles and different sides, it fucks your back up. Greg and I just came to this point yesterday where we realised we were thinking about home so much. I'm thinking about how much we miss home. And being out here when you're surrounded by nothing, the ocean, you're so stuck with your thoughts, and for a while I was just hanging on to those memories of being at home and all the amazing things that I can do when I get back. But now when I think about it, it's torture, because we're going to be on this boat for so long. We're going to be on this boat for like another 5 weeks. 5 weeks on this boat. I don't know how I'm able to keep going.
And just when Greg and Jude thought things couldn't get any worse, nature unleashed her fury on them and disaster struck.
The fear that I'm experiencing is with me 24/7. I've got it around the clock, every second of the day. I always am feeling fearful. I never get that point where I get to relax and let go. I'm just in a constant state of panic. I'm running on adrenaline. You know, I don't even care when I am going to get the point to get to sleep. I just don't know if I'm going to survive the next 2 minutes. So, and the hardest thing about this is there is no space in my brain to consider there's 2 months to go. I just can't process that. It's just not something I can wrap my head around. It is about surviving the next rowing shift for 2 hours. That's all I can fathom. I feel sick inside. I feel like, you know, I'm fighting for my life.
Unable to predict the weather or plan for it, steering with one hand and rowing with the other against waves as tall as a house, the boys had no choice but to hold on tight and hope and pray that conditions would not force them to abandon the boat almost 900 miles out to sea.
So there was one moment where I was going up a wave and I slid back down and the whole boat just completely submerged itself. It felt like I was in a washing machine and it was all a blur really. I just remember waking up and just seeing I was laid out onto one side of the boat. One oar had actually snapped out of the rowlock and I was just laying down thinking, what just happened?
The boat capsizing could mean being without a working radio, which in turn could leave them cast away for days, even weeks at sea on huge waves with no means of calling for help. And then their worst nightmare came true. Hit by a massive 40-foot wave, the boat capsized.
Shit, Jay, shit! No, Jude! Jude, get in the cabin! Get in the cabin now, Jay, get... Shit, Jay, look, we're tipping, quick, get in the cabin. Oh god, fucking god. Oh shit! Get in the cabin! Hey, get in the cabin!
They rang me and said, "Mum, it's okay now, but we capsized." And they said that about a few things. It's okay now, but. And I've come to realise that because, you know, it's okay, but everything's broken, you know. So when they told me about the capsize, it's like my heart lurched, you know, because that has been my worst fear.
Yeah, I mean, a capsize and losing your instruments is catastrophic really to the whole project. And primarily in terms of navigation, knowing where you are, what course you need to get across the Atlantic. It really depends how bad that damage is and what of any of the instruments are salvageable. And so their skills really of engineering and are really going to come to the fore. What can they salvage from that equipment to help them to understand their position, where they need to get to, and that's going to be really, really tough to pull that around and get back on course. I think with this particular challenge, you don't really have much choice but to carry on, because it's not like you can just step off the boat. You're in mid-Atlantic and you just got to keep going.
They are my babies, and how did I let them go? The capsizing, the 40-foot waves, everything breaking, both in tears. Jude on the phone saying he's absolutely terrified and he doesn't think that he's going to make it. Is it about the last time I'll see them,
And that was the point where Greg and Jude thought they'd have to give up and accept defeat, call for help, and get out while they were still alive. Only they didn't.
And we capsized after a shark who had been following us the day before. Huge wave hits us. I get jettisoned off the side of the boat. Jude dives over to try and get me.
And Greg and I were both in panic. We're like, we need to get the life raft out and we need to get to safety.
And we just said to that night, look, we're just going to get in the cabin. We're going to get hypothermic now because all of our clothes are soaked. We're just going to try and get out of this.
If we got on the life raft, I doubt we would have survived those conditions. We were very, very lucky.
We would cry, and then there'd be anger, fury, and by the end we just learned to laugh and expect everything to go wrong. That was our saving grace, learning to laugh.
Nice cup of tea in the morning. Nothing like a nice copper to get the day going.
It was weird crying my eyes out on a boat all alone in the middle of the Atlantic, kind of defeated, and yet knowing there was going to be not one morsel of help to make it better. And then the magic happened, when I stopped resisting and I let the experience be what it was. The lesson I've learned, and I'm being brought back to again and again, is self-compassion. Because unlike at home where you can wander off and do something else, you're just left with that unresolved issue in your head going over and over and over. And the only way to really resolve it is to show kindness to yourself. And this is exactly why I want to be rowing this ocean.
Before the row, I had no ambition, no drive to get myself out of the heavy depression after Dad died. But this has ended up being my saving grace, helping me fight the elements in the middle of the ocean with my brother, trying to battle every thought in my head of giving up. My mental health fluctuated all throughout my late teens, but absolutely nothing could have prepared me for what we have been hit with in the Atlantic.
Yeah, we're approaching halfway. The whole size and length of the challenge is sometimes quite hard to comprehend, but as time goes by, the way that is becoming easier is to stop thinking that we are temporarily on this little boat doing this challenge, but instead to make this boat home as much as possible. Think, how can I get more comfortable in this routine, this lifestyle, so that I could live on this boat forever? And a lot of that just comes down to lowering your expectations of comfort. Getting okay with being in a soggy sleeping bag, being okay with having to use the toilet in the pouring rain and getting soaked, not seeing the fact that you can't fully open your hands in the morning because they're just so sore.
as a bad thing and just a normal thing. And then you're not constantly in your mind going, oh, this is dreadful, this is dreadful.
You can see all these incredible colours on these fish, these beautiful turtles so gently just swimming past us. And yet, we all know that the fish population is decreasing faster than ever. Species are being wiped out or becoming endangered faster than ever. It's all spiralling out of control in a way which we don't necessarily know how to change positively or how to deal with this on a global level, despite the alarming concern that we are destroying our planet. And there's nothing more apparent than on this row than to see how vulnerable we are in losing something we're taking for granted.
The brush with mortality had brought the boys a new philosophy on life and how we live it. It was as if nature had shown them what is truly worth being grateful for.
You're fighting to get down the stairs on the tube. You know, people have become the same commodity of that world that we have constructed. When you spend time immersed deeply in nature, you remember the preciousness of life, the preciousness of humanity. You only have to look at indigenous tribes of the Amazon rainforest, such as the Kurubo tribe, to know that they do not want all that Western civilization has to offer. They are living their best life already. In the future, we're going to have less. We're going to have to live more with more risk and more dangerously. And I have to say, living with nothing on the edge is the fucking best place in the world to be. We will have rising sea levels, which will cause mass migration, and there will be food shortages, and you will have job scarcity, and you will be subject to more disease, and you will find that there'll be more instability politically and at borders, and you will have no choice but to give up your comfort of that deep security. Your safety is not guaranteed. And what I've got to tell you is that letting go of that sense of safety, living life on the edge with nothing, is the best thing in the world.
After the first 2 weeks, the experience completely changed for me. I'm not sure how or why, but everything seemed to be okay. After being in this simple, almost monotonous routine, you lose touch with modern human emotions and obsessions. You start to get down to your roots and really feel at home with being in nature. I look out into the horizon at night, trying to spot any ships in the distance. If I see one, it feels like they are violating our home territory. The ocean has become my home, and as unforgiving as it is, I've fallen in love with it. The sequencing shades of blue plastering the ocean surface, the set of waves begin to feel like friends. The energy they bring as they crash onto the side of the boat constantly remind me where we are in the world. This is also my saving grace. Out of all of this discomfort and pain, the ocean reminds you of where you are. You're in its territory, and you better be grateful that she's treating you well. And I think of Dad, Pete Massey. What a man you were, and your legacy will live on forever in me. You endured over 8 major operations in your life. I remember you expressing how sad you were to look so disfigured, and felt like your strength as a man had been depleted. This was never the case. Your strength drove Greg and I to come to this decision, to help those in need with the disease that took your life. Your strength as a role model, a father, was never tampered. You gave me the building blocks on how to become a good human being. Thank you for that.
Today is day 27, still a long way to go, 3 or 4 weeks. There's a lot of reasons why it's been tough, like the water maker breaking, no instruments. But those things specifically we can get over. The thing that we can't really get over at the moment is the state of our arses. It is absolutely agony to sit down on the seat. We've got like what looks like acne on our backsides, and it's just so painful. And to think that we've got 3 weeks where we've got to row day and night with this backside being that painful is unfathomable. So the hands are really peeling all over now, and the tendons in the hands and the wrist mean that when you wake up you've got this like claw hand. You can't really open them or close them anymore. It's flipping painful. You obsess a lot about things you want to do, or your plans. I think it's out of an attempt to want to be able to control, and ultimately we can't control when we're going to get there. We can't control the experience out here really. It's so much about surviving and being a passive recipient of the environment rather than someone at war with it. The past few days, instead of that obsessional thoughts, just literally been able to look out at the stars on a night shift for 2 hours and just look at them and not think about anything. Just look at the stars. And it's lovely. And I'm really starting to feel now what it is to abandon a materialistic lifestyle. It's so nice. It's so nice to know that it is possible to be genuinely joyful and happy even when the day is just simply filled with pumping enough water to survive, eating, cooking and eating, going to the loo and rowing, and that's it. Week 6 of our row, and it's getting really slow. We've got these light winds, and when they do pick up they're coming at us right on the side, so we've got no wind assistance, which means we go really slow and the boat is always tipped to one side, which really makes it agony on one side of your arse. Shoulders doing a little bit better. I had it in a sling for a few days. I could only row with one arm because I had a rotator cuff injury and I couldn't row with that arm for about a few days, so I just had to rest it. I was taking loads of painkillers, drinking quite a lot of rum actually to numb the pain.
These last few days, the sun has been just unbearable. Like, if you sit in the sun for more than 2 minutes, you're pouring with sweat. And we've got to pump water in the morning, and it is absolutely exhausting trying to pump water. Oh my fucking god, my arse is like probably the worst thing. It's so painful. It's like sitting on a bed of needles and rowing. My shoulders are really painful from rowing on one side. My back is in agony because of the constant having to use that lower back for every single stroke. My neck is in pain. I'm getting migraines. Get heat stroke quite a lot. My legs, my thighs are painful. My knees, the joint which keeps needing to move. My feet are covered in blisters. All of this pain, yet I'm kind of enjoying it. But tonight I was just rowing underneath the stars and completely lost in the abyss of nature. It literally feels like I was rowing in space because I couldn't see the horizon joining the sky and the sea together, and it was just one amazing experience.
It's kind of normal to only ever sleep for an hour and a half. It doesn't seem abnormal anymore, and there is no other life. This is it, you know, this tiny little cabin is everything.
If we can learn to rationalise and calm ourselves about what lies ahead for human civilization, when we can see that eating a pineapple is as pleasurable as buying a 50-foot yacht or a 400-pound dinner, that struggling to survive can be our purpose rather than something to dread, then the simple key to how we can survive and save future generations lies open to us becomes clear.
After weeks of isolation and vulnerability, Greg and Jude had found themselves at peace with their newfound way of life.
We've been out here for 6.5 weeks now, and I'm going a bit crazy. I cannot envisage life without being on this boat.
Last week or so, conditions have really died down to very, very light winds and hot weather.
I've just come off a 2-hour shift and I am sweating so much. Greg and I aren't peeing much today because we think it's because we're just sweating so much. I'm so hot. Literally my whole body is just coats and sweat. I'm so used to being on the boat. Life on the boat is very, very natural. Greg and I are just cracking on with just the routine. It's so natural now to get up at night and go rowing for 2 hours and go to sleep and wake up and start cooking breakfast and to have lunch together. It's just so normal. We are expected to arrive in about a week and a half. And I'm kind of gutted. I'm kind of like, I want to stay out here for a bit longer.
Today is day 47 and we've got 340.9 miles to go until we reach North Point of Barbados. But yesterday, last night and today we've suddenly got some quite strong southerly winds and we're trying to get in a southwesterly direction, which means we're almost rowing into wind. So it's become a real battle. We went out on power anchor last night because we were just getting blown the wrong way.
Strong headwinds are making the going tough. I'm apprehensive about the tides and currents as we approach Barbados. This could easily be the most dangerous part of our voyage.
Today we have 4 days to go. The winds have picked up and we're flying. Just look at what I'm rowing in right now.
We've just had our first sight of humans. We saw a small fishing boat and of course I can feel the end is in sight, and I've obviously missed my family and my girlfriend Francesca so much, and I can't wait to be with them. But at the same time, I'm really sad to be letting go of this life that we've begun and fully adopted and been immersed in. I don't want to let it go. And if I'm honest, I'm reluctant to return back to what we call civilization.
Barbados, here we come!
Greg and Jude were so near the end of their journey, yet this part could be every bit as challenging as anything they had so far encountered. They could still be capsized by freak waves or founder on a razor-sharp reef, or worse still, the treacherous winds and rip tides they might encounter on their approach could drag them towards the rough, deadly coastline on the windward side of the island where the boys could be swept lethally against the rocks.
We've just had the first sight of land in over 2 months. We've been looking at water, waves, ocean, the stars, and I can literally smell the land.
So it's day 52 and we are hopefully arriving tomorrow! We're gonna arrive at like 9 PM, we've been told by weather router, and the feeling is just, oh my god. The thought that we're gonna be stepping onto land, into normal civilization is just crazy.
I knew that the last 2 hours were going to be some of the most dangerous parts of their voyage as they come off the Atlantic and start hitting the Barbadian reefs, that they could easily get sucked into one of those. That's invariably where it goes wrong, if it is going to go wrong, and I was naturally worried about that. Really what turned it for me was when the skipper on the boat, who didn't even know Jude, didn't even know Greg, and I saw a tear rolling down his cheek at the enormity of what they'd accomplished. It just made me immensely proud as a dad and grateful that they're both alive, and I know that Pete would be immensely proud of his son, as I am.
They must be absolutely elated to have set a challenge like that. All the work that's gone into it, the preparation, the training hours, the fundraising, and then to actually get across the Atlantic, and all the effort that entails, and you know, it must just be like a dream come true. So it's fantastic news.
I wouldn't have survived them being missing at sea. I just wouldn't have survived it. The relief, the utter relief. I guess when I saw that boat, I breathed. I breathed for the first time since they left, and
After 53 days at sea, Greg and June had conquered not only the Atlantic Ocean, but fear, hardship and isolation.
Isolation is, it can be really, really tough, particularly, in an endurance game like this, where you're tired, you're exhausted, and all you really want to do is be with your family and friends and anywhere but on that boat. And so I think that team element is absolutely critical in those moments when you're having a tough day, that your teammate, your buddy can back you up, and you share that challenge, that experience together and get through it together.
And Jude, who incredibly was still only 18 years old at the start of this gruelling journey, entered the Guinness Book of Records as the youngest ever person to row the Atlantic in a team of 2.
I knew both boys had just kind of lost it. I know that they were sort of clinging on to each other, especially when they had to close up the cabin and stay in the cabin together for 24 hours while they were in a storm. They could have got a rescue, They had that option. But they didn't. And that my boys pulled through that, that to me that is superhuman. I just don't know how they did it. I would never be able to do that. I don't know where they've got it from,
When I saw that teeny weeny little boat down there at the horizon, I said, that is actually him on there. They're actually coming back. And it was just getting closer and closer, and that was so beautiful.
When I saw them and I knew they were safe, it was so powerful. It was more than just the boat coming in. It was just like, it's almost like a spiritual experience, I think relief, but so proud. Just unbelievably proud and relieved and in awe of what they've done.
So how did Greg and Jude feel to be back on dry land?
It was by far the hardest experience of my life. So I was crushed probably 4 or 5 times by my own mind.
For me, the deeper message to this whole row and to this whole experience of being completely torn apart, completely isolated, immersed in nature, immersed in what humans really are, the deep down cause of who we are. We're explorers, we're hunter-gatherers. We thrive on being in the moment. We thrive on accepting who we are and accepting everyone around us.
One of the things out in the Atlantic that we had to experience was pumping water every day, 5 hours a day, drop by drop. And it occurred to me halfway through that actually this is normal for much of the developing world. People don't have easy access to water, and although it's somewhat incredible what we did, actually for a large proportion of the world this is just normal day-to-day life. Coming back to land has made me realise how problems that have previously been there are really just self-created drama. They're not real problems. Real problems are, have you got enough water? Have you eaten today?
Have you got a toilet?
Are you safe?
It opens up a whole new perspective on life, and I am a changed man. I'm so different to the person I was when I stepped off from Gran Canaria.
Yeah.
So different.
The underlying wonderful thing that I could never have imagined come from this is the deep level of appreciation for life. That was the second moment I cried on the boat, was the sudden snap realisation of and now we're back on land. Wow, I appreciate life.
The boys had lived through 53 days of pain, loneliness and fear, without possessions, without luxuries, and sometimes without hope.
We humans need to recognize our own insignificance, and we need to acknowledge that we don't need all the possessions and status, and the hustle and the greed. We only need to play a humble, grateful role in the work of nature, to be respectful on the planet, and to stay in awe of her power. We have to remember where we sit in this world.
Their journey brought them closer together as brothers, and closer to an understanding of how simplicity, struggle, humility, and love and respect for the vastness of nature should be at the heart of everything you do.